I still remember the day I signed those mortgage papers. July 15th, 2018. The loan officer, young kid, couldn't have been more than 30, looked at me with that mixture of concern and pity that folks reserve for old men making bad decisions. Mr. Caldwell, are you absolutely sure about this? It's a significant financial commitment at your age, at my age. Like 68 was ancient. Like I hadn't spent 43 years building houses that would outlast me by centuries. I'm sure, I told him, signing my name with the same steady hand that had framed 2,000 homes across 3 counties. They're my kids. That was always my answer whenever anyone questioned what I did for Michael and Sarah. They're my kids. As if those 3 words explained everything. As if being someone's father meant you kept paying their bills until the day you died. The house was nice. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, open concept kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Too nice for a couple just starting out. But Sarah had always had expensive taste, just like her mother. Dad, it's an investment in our future, she'd said, standing in that empty living room, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. We want to raise your grandchildren in a good neighborhood with good schools. How could I argue with that? My grandchildren. The magic words that opened my wallet every time. So I refinanced my paid-off house, the one I'd built with my own hands when Martha was still alive, to help with their down payment. I co-signed the loan because Michael's credit wasn't quite good enough yet. Just until my business takes off, he promised. 5 years later, I was still making their mortgage payments whenever they came up short, which was most months. Michael's business, a high-end furniture restoration company, never quite took off the way he'd promised. Sarah's interior design consultancy brought in just enough to cover their car payments and my grandson Jacob's private preschool tuition. I never complained. That's not what fathers do. You spoil them, my brother Frank told me over beers one Friday night. We were sitting on my back porch, the one with the warped boards I couldn't afford to replace because I was paying for someone else's perfect deck across town. They're doing their best, I said automatically. The same defense I'd been offering for years. Frank just shook his head. He'd raised 3 kids who all paid their own bills, all owned modest homes they could actually afford. There's a difference between helping and enabling, Dennis. They're taking advantage of you. I changed the subject. What was I supposed to say? That sometimes late at night I wondered if he was right. That at 73, I was still working part-time at the lumberyard because my retirement savings had been slowly drained away by 1,000 temporary emergencies. The real wake-up call came last Thanksgiving. I'd been invited to Sarah and Michael's for dinner, an invitation that felt more like an obligation than a celebration. Their house was filled with people I barely knew, Michael's business associates, Sarah's friends from her yoga studio, all talking about vacation homes and investment portfolios while I sat quietly at the end of the table in my best flannel shirt. Grandpa, can I sit with you? Jacob, now 7, climbed into the chair beside me. His plate piled high with turkey and mashed potatoes. Of course, buddy. I ruffled his hair, grateful for the company. We were halfway through dinner when Sarah clinked her glass for attention. We have some exciting news, she announced, glancing at Michael with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We've decided to renovate the kitchen. Murmurs of approval rippled around the table. That's wonderful, said one of Sarah's friends. Melissa or Melanie, I couldn't remember which. Those cabinets are so dated. The whole layout needs to be reconfigured, Michael added. We're thinking of opening up that wall and putting in a bigger island. Sounds expensive, I said before I could stop myself. The table went quiet. Sarah's smile tightened. Well, Dad, some things are worth investing in, she said, her voice sharp. Besides, Michael just landed that contract with the Robertsons, so we'll be fine. The conversation moved on, but something had shifted. I felt it in the quick glances exchanged between my daughter and son-in-law, in the way Michael steered the conversation away from me for the rest of the evening. Later, as I was helping clear the dishes, I overheard them in the pantry. He always has to make everything about money, Sarah whispered. Just ignore him, Michael replied. Remember what Dr. Phillips said about setting boundaries with negative people. Negative people. Was that what I'd become to my own children? The negative old man who worried about money. I left early, claiming fatigue. No one tried very hard to make me stay. That night, alone in my house with the flickering porch light I couldn't afford to fix, I pulled out the folder where I kept track of every loan, every gift, Every mortgage payment I'd made for Sarah and Michael over the years. The total made my stomach clench. $187,432.17. Almost $200,000, not counting the co-signed mortgage. I closed the folder and poured myself 2 fingers of the cheap whiskey I kept for special occasions. This felt like one. The night I finally admitted to myself that Frank had been right all along. The next morning I called my old friend Charlie Reynolds. He'd been my attorney since we were both young men with more hair and fewer regrets. "Charlie, I need your help with something. Name it." "Dennis, I need to know what my legal obligations are regarding my daughter's mortgage, the one I co-signed." There was a pause on the line. "You thinking of stopping payments?" "I'm thinking of a lot of things." Another pause. "Come by the office tomorrow. We'll talk options." It was a word I hadn't considered in years. I'd been so focused on keeping Sarah and Michael afloat that I'd forgotten I had choices of my own. Charlie's office smelled the same as it always had. Leather, coffee, and the faint hint of the cigars he wasn't supposed to smoke indoors anymore. He listened without interrupting as I laid out the whole situation. The refinanced house, the endless financial demands, the Thanksgiving conversation. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled under his chin. "Well, Dennis, the good news is that co-signing doesn't mean you're trapped forever. The bad news is that extricating yourself will likely damage your relationship with Sarah and Michael." I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. "What relationship?" "They see me as an ATM with an expiration date." Charlie didn't argue. Instead, he outlined my options that included reviewing the loan terms, potentially removing myself as co-signer if Michael and Sarah could qualify on their own now, or even looking into whether I could purchase the property myself if they defaulted. Purchase it myself? The idea had never occurred to me. "It's an option," Charlie said carefully, "but it would be complicated, emotionally and legally." I left his office with more questions than answers, but for the first time in years, I felt something stirring inside me. Not anger exactly. Something harder, colder, resolve. 2 weeks passed. I didn't call Sarah or Michael, and they didn't call me. Christmas came and went with only a text message from Sarah. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Jacob loved the science kit." No invitation to join them for the holiday. In January, I received a letter from their mortgage company. They were 3 months behind on payments. As co-signer, I was being notified before the foreclosure process began. I called Sarah immediately. "Oh, Dad," she sighed when I asked about the mortgage. "It's just a temporary cash flow issue. Michael's waiting on payment from a big client." "We'll catch up. Sarah, this is serious. You could lose the house." "We're not going to lose the house," she snapped. "God, you're always so dramatic about money." "We're fine. Michael's business is doing really well." "Then why haven't you paid the mortgage in 3 months?" Silence. "Then I have to go. Jacob has a play date." She hung up before I could respond. That afternoon, I drove to the bank and made the minimum payment required to pause the foreclosure process. Then I called Charlie. "I want to look into buying their house," I said without preamble. "If it goes to foreclosure, I want to be the one who gets it." "Dennis," Charlie's voice was cautious. "Are you sure about this? It would be a declaration of war." "They declared war on me a long time ago," I replied. "They just didn't bother to tell me I was the enemy." The next few months passed in a blur of paperwork, consultations, and sleepless nights. Charlie connected me with a financial advisor who helped me understand exactly what I could afford and what risks I was taking. I contacted the mortgage company to ensure I'd be notified of any foreclosure auction. I even hired a private investigator to look into Michael's business finances, suspecting that their money problems went deeper than a few late payments. I was right. The PI's report showed a business drowning in debt, with multiple tax liens and vendor complaints. Michael had been robbing Peter to pay Paul for years, using new client deposits to fulfill old orders. It was a house of cards that was about to collapse. In April, the mortgage company sent another notice. The house was going to auction in May unless all past due amounts were paid in full. I didn't make the payment this time. The week before the auction, Sarah finally called me. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight with worry. "We're having some financial difficulties." "I know," I replied. "I got the foreclosure notice. Then you know we need your help. It's just $22,000 to get current. Michael has some big projects coming up. No. The word hung between us, simple and final. What do you mean, no? Sarah's voice rose an octave. I mean, no, Sarah, I'm not giving you any more money. But we'll lose the house. Your grandchildren will lose their home. You've had 5 years to make this work, Sarah. 5 years of me helping every time you called. It's time for you to face reality. Reality? She was shouting now. The reality is you're abandoning your family when we need you most. How could you do this to us? To Jacob and Emma. The guilt trip might have worked once. Not anymore. I'll see you at the auction, Sarah. I hung up. Hands shaking but mind clear. On the day of the auction I arrived early, briefcase in hand containing cashier's checks and all the paperwork Charlie had prepared. Sarah and Michael weren't there. Either too proud or too afraid to watch their house sold to the highest bidder. There were only 3 serious bidders, a property management company, a house flipper I recognized from around town, and me. The bidding started at the outstanding loan amount plus fees. The property company dropped out early. The flipper hung on longer, but when I kept matching his bids without hesitation, he finally shook his head and stepped back. Just like that, I owned my children's house. The house I'd helped them buy. The house I'd been making payments on for years. Now it was mine, free and clear. As I signed the final paperwork, the auctioneer gave me a curious look. "Isn't this your daughter's place?" he asked. We'd known each other for decades. Small-town life meant few secrets. "It was," I replied, tucking the deed into my briefcase. "Now it's mine. What are you going to do with it?" I met his eyes steadily. "I'm going to rent it out. At market value." Market value in our growing town was nearly triple what Sarah and Michael's mortgage payment had been. The irony wasn't lost on me. After years of subsidizing their lifestyle, I was about to make a profit from their failure. Some might call it cruel. I called it justice. I didn't sleep the night after the auction. Sat in my recliner with a glass of whiskey, deed papers spread across my coffee table, wondering if I'd gone too far. Then I remembered Thanksgiving, negative people, and Sarah hanging up on me when I asked about the mortgage. No, I hadn't gone too far. I'd just finally gone far enough. The real question was what to do next. Charlie advised waiting a few days before making any moves. "Let them come to you," he said. "You've got the leverage now." He was right. The call came 48 hours later. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Michael's voice was tight with fury, none of his usual smooth charm in evidence. "Hello to you too, Michael. Don't play games with me. The bank says you bought our house." "Our house, Dennis." I took a slow sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. "Actually, it's my house now. Says so right here on the deed. This isn't funny. We have children. Where are we supposed to live?" "That's an interesting question," I replied. "Where were you planning to live when the bank foreclosed and some stranger bought the property?" Silence on the line. "Then, we were counting on you to help us. Like you always do, there it was. The entitled assumption that had defined our relationship for years. Well, I did help you. I bought the house instead of letting it go to some developer who would have evicted you on the spot. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you?" He sounded like he was choking. "You've stolen our home." "No, Michael. I purchased a property at a legal auction after the owners defaulted on their mortgage. The same mortgage I co-signed and made payments on for 5 years. The same mortgage you and Sarah assured me you could handle." More silence. I could practically hear him calculating his next approach. "Look, Dennis," his voice softened, shifting into the persuasive tone he used with clients. "I know things have been tough lately. We should sit down and talk this through as a family. I'm sure we can work something out." "I'm sure we can," I agreed. "In fact, I already have a proposal in mind." "What kind of proposal?" Suspicion had replaced the anger in his voice. "I'll explain when we meet. Tomorrow my house 10 a.m. We can't just tomorrow 10 a.m. or you can start looking for a new place immediately. Your choice." I hung up before he could respond. They arrived at 10:15, late as usual. Sarah looked like she hadn't slept, her normally perfect makeup barely hiding the dark circles under her eyes. Michael wore the confident smile of a man who believed he could talk his way out of anything. "Coffee?" I offered, gesturing to the pot I'd brewed. "Cut the pleasantries, Dad," Sarah snapped. "What's this about?" I motioned for them to sit at my kitchen table, the same oak table where I'd taught Sarah to do her homework 30 years ago. I took my time pouring coffee, arranging creamer and sugar before sitting down across from them. "Here's the situation," I began, sliding a folder toward them. I now own the property at 1435 Maple Drive. As the legal owner, I'm entitled to do with it as I see fit. It's our home, Sarah interrupted, her voice cracking. It was your home, I corrected gently. Now it's my investment property. Michael leaned forward, elbows on the table. What do you want, Dennis? Money? Because once my clients pay up, I laughed, couldn't help it. Your clients aren't paying up, Michael. Your business is failing. Has been for years. His face paled. You don't know what you're talking about. I opened another folder, the one containing the PI's report, and slid it across the table. 3 tax liens, 5 vendor complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau, 2 lawsuits pending from customers who paid deposits but never received their furniture. Should I continue? Sarah turned to her husband, confusion replacing anger. Michael, what is he talking about? Michael's confident facade crumbled. It's not that bad. I've been handling it. By not paying your mortgage for 5 months? I asked. By bouncing checks to your suppliers? That kind of handling it? Sarah's hands were shaking as she flipped through the report. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to worry, Michael muttered. It's just a cash flow problem. Once the Hendersons pay for their dining set, the Hendersons cancelled their order 2 months ago, I interrupted. It's all in the report. The look of betrayal on Sarah's face almost made me feel sorry for Michael. Almost. Let's get back to the matter at hand, I said, closing the PI folder and opening the one containing my proposal. You have 2 options. Option 1, I sell the house immediately, and you find somewhere else to live within 30 days. Dad, please, Sarah whispered. Option 2, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. You stay in the house as my tenants with a formal lease agreement. Hope flickered across their faces. For how much? Michael asked cautiously. Market rate. $3,500 per month. That's triple our mortgage payment. Sarah gasped. That's what comparable properties rent for in your neighborhood, I replied. I've done my research. Michael's jaw clenched. This is extortion. No, this is business. The same business you've been teaching me for years. That family obligations only go one way. That I'm expected to bail you out, but you're not expected to appreciate it or even acknowledge it. That's not fair, Sarah protested. Isn't it? When was the last time either of you asked how I was doing? If I could afford to keep subsidizing your lifestyle? If maybe I needed help sometimes too? They exchanged uncomfortable glances, unable to answer. That's what I thought, I said quietly. So here's the lease agreement. First and last month's rent due immediately, plus a security deposit. Monthly payments due on the 1st of each month. Late fees apply after the 5th. We can't afford $3,500 a month, Sarah said, tears welling in her eyes. Then you should start packing. The cruel finality of my words hung in the air between us. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't shown anger. That somehow made it worse. You would really do this to us? To your own grandchildren? Sarah's voice broke on the last word. It was the same emotional manipulation she'd been using for years, but this time I was prepared for it. My grandchildren will always be welcome in my home, I said. You and Michael have until Friday to decide. Signed lease and payment or vacancy notice. Your choice. After they left, I sat alone at my kitchen table for a long time, turning my wedding ring around my finger. Martha would have hated this. The coldness, the calculated retribution. Or would she? She'd always been the practical one, warning me against giving too much to Sarah, insisting we maintain boundaries. She'll never learn to stand on her own if you're always propping her up, Martha had said when Sarah wanted us to pay for her semester abroad in college. I'd ignored that advice, like I'd ignored so many sensible warnings over the years. Well, I wasn't ignoring it anymore. The chest pains started that night. Just a twinge at first, easy to dismiss as heartburn from dinner. By midnight, it was a crushing pressure that radiated down my left arm. Heart attack. I knew the signs. My father had died of one at 65. I fumbled for my phone, managed to dial 911 before collapsing on my bedroom floor. The paramedics arrived quickly, one benefit of living in a small town. Oxygen, nitroglycerin, sirens wailing as they rushed me to County General. Fading in and out of consciousness, I remembered thinking, Sarah and Michael won't even know I'm here. I was wrong. When I opened my eyes in the cardiac care unit, Frank was sitting beside my bed, his weathered face tight with worry. Welcome back, you stubborn old goat, he said, voice gruff with emotion. How long? My throat felt like sandpaper, almost 24 hours. They put in 2 stents. Doctor says you'll live, unfortunately for the rest of us. I managed a weak smile. How did you know I was here? Hospital called me as your emergency contact. He hesitated. I called Sarah. My smile faded. You shouldn't have. She's your daughter, Dennis. Did she come? Frank looked away. She said she would. Later. I closed my eyes, not surprised, but still hurt. Tell her not to bother. Dennis, I mean it, Frank. I don't need their pity visits. A nurse came in then to check my vitals, ending the conversation. But as I drifted back to sleep, I heard Frank in the hallway, his voice raised in anger. He nearly died, for God's sake. What could possibly be more important than being here? I couldn't hear the response. Sarah on the phone, I assumed. But Frank's disgusted unbelievable told me all I needed to know. When I woke again, it was dark outside. A different figure sat beside my bed, Charlie, legal pad on his knee. Don't you ever take a day off? I croaked. He looked up, relief washing over his face. Not when my oldest client and friend decides to scare the hell out of everyone. Sorry about that. You should be. I had to reschedule 2 depositions. His attempt at humor fell flat. Frank told me about Sarah. I tried to shrug, winced at the pain in my chest. Not surprised. Actually, Charlie said carefully, she did come by. Earlier, while you were sleeping. She and Michael both. That did surprise me. What did they want? Charlie's expression turned grim. They wanted to know if your condition affected the house situation. The pain in my chest had nothing to do with my heart attack now. Of course they did. Dennis, there's something else you should know. Charlie leaned closer, lowering his voice. While they were here, Michael was asking the doctor some concerning questions. What kind of questions? About your prognosis, your mental capacity, whether your condition might affect your ability to make financial decisions. Cold understanding washed over me. They're going to try to declare me incompetent, Charlie nodded. I think that's the plan. Get control of your finances, including the house. Can they do that? They can try. It would be a long shot, given that you're clearly lucid, and the doctor expects a full recovery. But the attempt alone could tie things up in court for months. I laughed bitterly, then winced at the pain it caused. My own daughter. People do desperate things when money's involved, Charlie said. Especially people who've never had to face consequences before. I stared at the ceiling, connecting dots I should have seen years ago. The constant financial emergencies, the emotional manipulation, the way they'd isolated me from Jacob and Emma whenever I questioned their spending. How much time do we have? Before they make a move? Not long. Maybe days. I pushed myself up higher in the bed, ignoring the protest from my body. Then we need to move faster. I want everything transferred into that trust we discussed. Today. Charlie frowned. Dennis, you just had a heart attack. You should be resting, not... I'll rest when my affairs are in order. I met his concerned gaze steadily. They're not taking anything else from me, Charlie. Not one more penny. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right. I'll get the paperwork started. But you have to promise to follow doctor's orders otherwise. Deal. After Charlie left, I lay in the darkness, listening to the steady beep of heart monitors and the occasional squeak of nurses' shoes in the hallway. The pain medication made my thoughts fuzzy around the edges, but one realization remained crystal clear. This wasn't just about money anymore. It never had been. This was about respect, about boundaries, about finally teaching my daughter and son-in-law that actions have consequences. The next morning, a nurse delivered a bouquet of flowers, grocery store roses with a card signed by Sarah and Michael. No visit, just flowers. As if carnations and baby's breath could make up for trying to have me declared incompetent. I asked the nurse to give them to someone who needed cheering up more than I did. 3 days later, I was discharged with strict instructions to take it easy. Frank drove me home, stocked my refrigerator with heart-healthy meals, and set up a system of daily check-in calls that I pretended to find annoying but secretly appreciated. On my kitchen counter was a FedEx envelope that had arrived during my hospital stay. Inside was a bank check for $7,000 and a signed lease agreement for the house on Maple Drive. No note, no explanation, so they'd chosen option 2. Interesting. I called Charlie immediately. They signed the lease, I told him when he answered. Good. That's good. He sounded distracted. Dennis, there's something else we need to discuss. Something I found while preparing the trust documents. What is it? I think you should come to my office when you're feeling up to it. Some things shouldn't be discussed over the phone. A chill ran down my spine. Just tell me, Charlie. He sighed. I pulled your financial records for the past 5 years to document all the gifts and loans to Sarah and Michael. And I found some irregularities. Withdrawals from your accounts that don't match your records. Credit card charges you didn't authorize, Dennis. I think they've been stealing from you. The room seemed to tilt sideways for a moment. How much? At least $50,000, maybe more. I'm still digging. $50,000, on top of everything I'd given them willingly. Dennis, are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow and distant. Do you want me to call the police? Did I want my own daughter arrested for theft? The old Dennis would have said no immediately, would have made excuses, found ways to justify even this betrayal, but I wasn't that man anymore. Yes, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Call the police. It's time they faced the consequences of their actions. All of them. The next few weeks passed in a blur of doctor's appointments, legal meetings, and sleepless nights. My body was healing from the heart attack, but the deeper wound, the betrayal by my own children, that would take longer. Charlie worked tirelessly, compiling evidence of Sarah and Michael's financial exploitation, bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, credit card charges for restaurants and stores I'd never visited, even a car loan in my name for a vehicle I'd never seen. They used your personal information to open accounts, Charlie explained, spreading documents across his desk. Classic identity theft, except usually it's not committed by your own children. I stared at the evidence, remembering all the times Sarah had helped with my finances after Martha died. All those offers to sort my mail, pay my bills online, organize my paperwork. Services I'd interpreted as love had actually been surveillance looking for opportunities. When did they start? I asked, my voice sounding old even to my own ears. Charlie checked his notes. The first unauthorized account was opened 3 years ago, shortly after Michael's business started having trouble. 3 years. While I was still giving them money willingly, they decided it wasn't enough and started taking more. Detective Wilson from the county sheriff's office sat across from us, recording our conversation and taking notes. He was about my age, with the weathered face of someone who thought he'd seen it all until now. Mr. Caldwell, I have to ask, are you certain you want to pursue criminal charges? These are serious allegations against your own daughter. I met his eyes steadily. I'm certain. He nodded once, respecting my decision without judging it. Then we'll proceed. But you should prepare yourself. This won't be quick or easy, and it will permanently change your family relationships. A bitter laugh escaped me. Detective, those relationships changed long ago. I just didn't want to see it. Later that week, I was sitting on my porch when a sleek black SUV pulled into my driveway. Sarah emerged alone for once, dressed in the kind of casual, expensive outfit that had become her uniform. Designer jeans, silk blouse, diamond studs in her ears that I'd given her for her 30th birthday. I didn't stand to greet her. Dad. She approached cautiously, as if I might spook like a wild animal. You're looking better. Am I? Hard to tell without a mirror. She winced at my tone but pressed on, settling uninvited into the chair beside mine. I wanted to check on you. After your heart attack, did you? Or did you want to check if I'm still competent enough to manage my affairs? Her eyes widened, genuine surprise flickering across her face. What are you talking about? Charlie told me about your questions to my doctor. About my mental capacity, that's not... She stopped, regrouped. Michael was just concerned about your health decisions. With your heart condition, you thought you might get control of my finances if I was declared incompetent. I kept my voice calm, almost conversational. Including the house. Dad, that's ridiculous. We're worried about you. Save it, Sarah. I've seen the bank records. The color drained from her face. What bank records? The ones showing you and Michael have been stealing from me for years. Opening credit cards in my name. Taking out loans I never approved. She stood abruptly, her casual demeanor evaporating. I don't know what you think you've found, but you're confused. Maybe the heart attack affected your memory. The sheriff doesn't think I'm confused. And neither does the district attorney. She froze. What are you saying? I'm saying they'll be serving you and Michael with arrest warrants tomorrow morning. Felony charges, Identity theft, financial exploitation of an elder, wire fraud. It's quite a list. You're having us arrested? Her voice rose to a pitch I hadn't heard since she was a teenager, arguing about curfew. Your own daughter? My own daughter who stole $50,000 from me, while I was still giving her money whenever she asked. Guess that daughter. Dad, please. She was crying now, mascara tracking down her cheeks. We can work this out. We'll pay you back. Michael has some promising leads. Michael has nothing, I interrupted. His business is bankrupt. Your house, my house now, has 3 liens against it from his unpaid suppliers. You've been living in a fantasy world funded by my retirement savings. She sank back into the chair, all pretense gone. What do you want from us? What did I want? Revenge? Justice? Or something simpler? Acknowledgement, perhaps. Recognition of what they'd done. I want the truth, Sarah. Just once, I want you to tell me the truth. She stared at her manicured hands for a long moment. When she finally looked up, something had changed in her eyes. The calculating glint replaced by defeat. It started small, she said quietly. A credit card application came in the mail. Michael's business was struggling. We were behind on Jacob's school tuition. I thought we'd use it just once, pay it off before you even knew it existed. But you didn't stop there, she shook her head. It got easier each time. You never checked your credit reports, never questioned when new bills didn't arrive in your mail. And you kept giving us money whenever we asked, so we thought... She trailed off. You thought I wouldn't miss a little more, a nod. I told myself you'd want us to have it, that you'd give it to us anyway if we asked. Then why didn't you just ask? Because, she hesitated, then the truth finally emerged. Because we'd have to explain why we needed it. Admit that Michael's business was failing. That we were living beyond our means. It was easier to just take it. We sat in silence as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across my small yard. In the distance, a lawnmower hummed, someone else's normal life continuing uninterrupted. What happens now? She finally asked. Now you face the consequences, I said simply. Like adults. We'll go to jail. It wasn't a question, probably for a while. First-time offenders, probably not as long as you fear. But your credit will be ruined. You'll have felony records. You'll lose your professional licenses. And the house? You've been paying rent. You can continue to do so if you want after everything else is resolved. Or you can find somewhere else to live. Your choice. She stood, smoothing her expensive jeans with trembling hands. The children will always have a place with me, I finished for her. They're innocent in all this. She nodded once, unable to meet my eyes, then walked back to her SUV without another word. I watched her drive away, feeling strangely hollow. There should have been satisfaction in finally confronting her, in laying out the consequences of her actions. Instead, I just felt tired, old. The arrests made the local paper. Small towns thrive on scandal, and this one had everything: prominent local family, elder exploitation, betrayal. I stopped going to my usual diner for breakfast when the whispers and sympathetic glances became too much to bear. Michael made bail first, then Sarah. Their preliminary hearing was set for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, they continued living in my house, paying rent on time, avoiding me completely. Frank drove me to the courthouse on the day of the hearing. I hadn't planned to attend, but Charlie thought my presence might influence the judge's decision on whether to proceed to trial. You don't have to do this, Frank said as we parked. Charlie can represent your interests. I need to see it, I replied. Need to know it's real. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled and austere. I sat in the back row while Charlie joined the district attorney at the prosecution table. Sarah and Michael sat with their attorney, not turning around even though they must have known I was there. Legal proceedings are nothing like on television. There were no dramatic confessions, no passionate speeches, just dry recitations of charges, procedural arguments, scheduling discussions. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, set a trial date for 3 months out, denied the defense motion to dismiss charges, and maintained the existing bail conditions. It was over in less than an hour. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered around Sarah and Michael, shouting questions they refused to answer. Their attorney made a brief statement about misunderstandings and family matters that should remain private, then hustled them toward a waiting car. One reporter spotted me, started heading my way, but Charlie intercepted him smoothly. Mr. Caldwell has no comment at this time. That night, alone in my kitchen, I poured myself a small glass of whiskey, doctor's orders be damned, and tried to make sense of what I'd done. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence heavier. On my refrigerator, held by a magnet, was a crayon drawing Jacob had made months ago. Grandpa's house scrawled across the top in childish handwriting. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. I opened the door to find Jacob and Emma standing on my porch, overnight bags at their feet. Behind them, Michael's mother Barbara waited beside her car. "Surprise, Grandpa." Emma launched herself at my legs, wrapping her arms around my knees. "We're staying with you tonight." I looked questioningly at Barbara, who shrugged. Sarah called. "Asked if I could drop them here. Said they've been missing you, missing me, or needing free childcare while their parents dealt with criminal charges. Did it matter?" "Come on in, kiddos," I said, ushering them inside. "Who wants hot chocolate?" After they were asleep, Emma in the guest room, Jacob on the pull-out couch, I sat at my kitchen table with Barbara, both of us nursing cups of decaf coffee. "They don't know, do they?" I asked. "About Sarah and Michael?" Barbara shook her head. "They know there's grown-up trouble, but not the details. Sarah said they've told the kids they made some mistakes with money. That's one way to put it." Barbara studied me over her coffee cup. She'd never been particularly fond of me. Thought I spoiled Sarah, ironically enough. But tonight there was no judgment in her gaze. "What will you do, Dennis, if they go to jail?" "Take care of the kids, I suppose." "What else can I do?" She nodded as if I'd confirmed something she already knew. "Despite everything, you're a good grandfather. A good man. A good man wouldn't have his daughter facing prison. A good man holds people accountable even when it hurts." She reached across the table, patted my hand once awkwardly. "Sarah made her choices. So did Michael. Those choices have consequences." After she left, I checked on the children again, watching their peaceful sleep from the doorway. Emma clutched a stuffed rabbit I'd given her last Christmas. Jacob had kicked off his blankets, one arm flung dramatically across his face, just like Sarah used to sleep. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, after pancakes and cartoons, I called Charlie. "I want to make a deal," I said without preamble. "What kind of deal?" "I'll drop the criminal charges if they agree to certain conditions." Charlie was silent for a moment. "What conditions did you have in mind?" By afternoon, he'd drafted an agreement. By evening, Sarah and Michael were sitting in my living room, their attorney beside them, while Jacob and Emma played in the backyard under Barbara's supervision. "Full financial disclosure," I said, outlining the terms. "Every account, every debt, every asset. Regular meetings with a financial counselor. Repayment of what you took, on a schedule you can actually maintain. Gainful employment, real jobs, not Michael's failing business. And custody arrangements for the children if you do end up serving time. And in return," their attorney asked, "I'll request the DA drop the criminal charges. You'll still have the civil judgment, but no jail time. No felony record." Sarah looked up, hope flickering across her face for the first time. "Why would you do this?" I glanced toward the window, where I could see Jacob pushing Emma on the old tire swing. "Not for you, for them." Michael started to speak, probably some practiced expression of gratitude, but I cut him off. "Don't thank me. This isn't forgiveness. It's practicality. Your children need parents, not inmates. But understand this, there won't be any more chances. One missed payment, one new scheme, and the deal's off." They nodded, properly chastened, though I wondered how long it would last, once the immediate threat was removed. Later, after all the papers were signed and everyone had left, I sat alone on my porch watching the sunset. The weight that had been pressing on my chest since Thanksgiving felt lighter, though not entirely gone. I'd done what needed to be done. Set boundaries I should have established decades ago. Demanded the respect I'd earned through a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice. The house on Maple Drive would continue to be mine. Sarah and Michael would continue to pay rent, market rate, until they'd repaid their debt. After that, we'd see. Perhaps by then, they'd have learned something about responsibility, about consequences, about the true meaning of family, or perhaps not. Either way, I'd finally learned my own lesson. Love doesn't mean enabling destructive behavior. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. I fingered the deed in my pocket, my insurance policy against future manipulation. My children had written me off as nothing more than a checkbook, with an expiration date. They'd made that mistake once. They wouldn't make it again, not in my house.